Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Today we're doing something a little bit different. We are mapping out a truly profound shift in how we approach our everyday lives. We're talking about moving away from that constant, exhausting grip of daily anxiety and stepping directly into a place of absolute, unwavering purpose. We're going to explore a framework drawn from Hasidic thought that is deeply spiritual, but also incredibly practical. It's honestly a complete perspective shift that changes how you interact with your own mind.
So, right off the bat, I want you to ask yourself something. Are you truly running your life? Or are your fears, your desires, and your need for approval actually running you? It's a pretty provocative question, isn't it? Because the truth is, most of the time, without us even realizing it, we're being steered by these invisible internal forces that just keep us entirely trapped in a loop of stress and searching.
All right, let's dive into part one, the illusion of the surviving child.
To really understand what's driving us behind the scenes, the source contrasts two completely different versions of our identity. On one side, you have the natural soul. Think of this as the surviving child. It's an identity built entirely on survival mechanisms, and it is completely driven by the trap of I want and what am I going to lose. But on the other side is the divine soul. That's your true essence. It doesn't actually need anything from the outside world. It acts as this quiet, totally unbothered observer, completely independent of whatever passing fears pop up.
The thing is, living strictly through this surviving child mode is literally the root cause of our emotional suffering. When your internal operating system is just constantly screaming, I want, you become totally dependent on external approval. Your happiness suddenly relies on, whether the stock market goes up, or if people compliment you today. And as the source points out, this relentless dependency inevitably leads to sadness, anxiety, and just absolute exhaustion.
Which brings us to part two. What is the hiding barrier?
Okay, so if our true essence is this unbothered, quiet observer, why is it so incredibly hard to access? Why do we get stuck playing the surviving child? Well, the foundation for breaking through this begins with a really famous plea from King David. Open my eyes, that I may behold wondrous things. Notice what he's saying there. He doesn't ask for reality to change. He's not asking for a different world. He's just asking for his eyes to be opened. And that implies that the wondrous reality is already right here. There is just a barrier, an illusion, that's blocking our vision.
Now, this is where it gets really fascinating. The Hebrew word used for this barrier is gal, which translates to wave. Think about a wave in the ocean for a second. Yes, it rises up like an obstacle for sure, but it is not a solid brick wall. A wave actually invites you to pass right over it. Our source emphasizes this beautifully. Our internal barriers, our egos, our deep-seated fears, they aren't insurmountable walls. They were designed from the very beginning to be crossed over.
We actually see this gal concept play out on a massive cosmic scale during the splitting of the Red Sea. When the sea split, it wasn't just some cool physical miracle, it represented the shattering of a massive spiritual barrier. The source explains that when this barrier broke, a reality completely beyond time and suffering was revealed. It showed us that what looks like a terrifying, impassable obstacle is actually just an illusion that's practically begging to be bypassed.
Let's move on to part three, the power of the observer. So, the big question, how do we actually split our own internal sea? We do it by making a massive pivot. We shift from experiencing the pain to simply observing it. The source lays out these really clear steps for this. First, you just notice the fear or anxiety when it pops up. Second, you step back internally. Don't fight it, just step back. And third, realize, hey, I am the observer here. I am not the emotion. In that moment, you stop being the terrified child and you step back into that divine soul. To really drive this home, the source brings in a profound concept from the Alter Rebbe. He explains that our thoughts, our feelings, and our behaviors are really just garments that the soul wears. I mean, you aren't your clothes, right? If you put on a super heavy, itchy winter coat, you don't suddenly think you are the coat. In the exact same way, you are not your anxiety. You're just the one wearing it for a moment. Honestly, what a relief to realize you can just step back and observe it.
And there's a super interesting historical milestone mentioned here, the Hebrew year 5751, which is around 1990 to 1991. According to these teachings, humanity hit a major tipping point right then. The era of just endlessly, exhaustingly fighting our bad traits, it's over. Today, the primary spiritual work is much simpler. We just observe, we detach, and we realize we are the divine soul.
Which leads us perfectly into part four, chatchila Ariber consciousness.
So if we aren't fighting the obstacle anymore, and we are just observing it, what is the ultimate mindset?
It's a concept in Chassidic thought called chatchila Ariber. Literally translated, it means to go over from the beginning. What this means practically is that when you face a barrier, you don't sit there analyzing it. You don't try to crawl under it, and you definitely don't try to punch your way through it. You just leap completely over it from the very start. It is the ultimate state of spiritual health, where your ego is totally absent and you just act directly from your truest self. Because listen, if you don't leap over the ego, the alternative is pretty brutal. The Source uses a really vivid metaphor for this. It's like the unavoidable pain of stepping on a nail. If your entire life is tied to your ego, if you're desperately looking for the world's approval and constantly searching for some kind of personal validation, you are inevitably going to suffer. It's basically a spiritual law of gravity. Clinging to the ego instantly and always causes pain.
And that brings us to our final and most crucial section, Part 5, From Personal Search to Mission.
So how do we stop stepping on that nail? We have to change our entire operating system. Think about it. When you are in personal searching mode, your entire focus is I want, and we know where that leads, anxiety and total dependence on external validation. But when you flip the switch to doing a mission, your focus becomes a higher purpose. The result? True joy, real humility, and complete independence from whatever circumstances you find yourself in. To show you just how powerful this independence is, the Source shares an amazing anecdote about R. Mendel. This man was sent to a freezing, absolute nightmare of a Siberian gulag, and yet he found the exact same joy there as he did sitting in a comfortable room back in Moscow. How was that even possible? Because he had no ego. He wasn't operating out of, I want to be comfortable. He was entirely 100% focused on his mission. And a mission, well, a mission can be executed absolutely anywhere.
The real secret sauce here is getting to a state of true humility. The Source states it so beautifully. The humble person is the absence of feeling oneself. Moses is actually given as the ultimate example of this. See, Moses wasn't a guy walking around with low self-esteem. He was simply entirely empty of ego. When the I want completely disappears, what's left is a pure, unbreakable connection to reality. You basically become a clear, open channel for your purpose.
All right, let's bring this all down to earth. Here is your concrete, daily game plan for actually applying this chatchila Ariber mindset. Step 1. Whenever you feel that stress rising, deliberately disidentify from the I want. Step 2. Stand completely back as the observer. Watch the emotion, but do not be the emotion. And step 3. Ask yourself one incredibly simple question. What is my mission right now? Just that question shifts you instantly from self-obsession straight into action.
I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. If there is no I, if you were to drop all of your ego-driven fears and desires right this very second, what is actually left to do today? The answer is your true mission. So stop fighting the barrier, step right over it, and realize that your purpose has been sitting there waiting for you this whole time. Thank you so much for exploring this framework with me today.